Hello, Taylor Ellwood here, and welcome to Magical Experiments Podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about the idea of working with your identity, and specifically parts work. I started reading this book called No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz, which I found to be a really fascinating book because it explores parts work, which is basically working with different identities. And for me, it reminded me a bit of some of the work that I did around magical identity, and specifically the idea of creating a internal mansion where I had multiple versions of myself, and one version would be responsible for a given subject area. And I still have that kind of setup as far as my personality goes, where I have multiple aspects of myself, and different aspects are focused on different subject areas. This is a bit different though, because what it's exploring is the idea of treating your personality as a family system. Instead of arguing for a singular identity where you're just, like you're like, oh, I'm Taylor, or I'm Alice, or I'm Greg, or whatever else. Instead, you're looking at the fact that really you're comprised of multiple personalities in some ways. We kind of liken it to being dissociative identity disorder, but it's not quite like that. It nonetheless is an acknowledgement that we have different aspects of ourselves that we can interact with that play very specific roles. So we may have parts of ourselves that are protectors or guardians or any number of other things. And it's one of those cases where what we really want to look at is how we can work with these different parts of ourselves. And so if we have a protector, the protector is in place because it's trying to protect us from specific experiences. Usually these parts are learned behaviors that we have developed as a result of trauma that we experienced in our childhood. So for example, one of the learned behaviors that I used to have, I don't really have it anymore, but I used to have a protector when it came to interactions like with my family. I learned early on that I had to kind of shut things down a bit and turn inward and curl inward and kind of just create like this intense space where it was just me, because I really couldn't let people in. I learned to work with that part of myself, that protector, and I helped that protector realize that my inner child could go out and play, and that I didn't have to protect that part of myself, that my protector didn't have to protect my exile, my inner child, as it were. So when I was reading when I've been reading this book and I've been kind of going through it, I've been like, there's some really interesting ideas. And I've been fortunate enough in my men's group to actually experience working with someone who has some experience with these child family systems. And so he's modeled it with a couple of us. And what I've done is I've taken it, and I've been reading this book, and then I've taken it and applied it to some of my own interactions and used it as a way to work with myself. And I've also used it as a way to understand some of the interactions that I have with other people. And specifically the interactions that I have with people that are showing up in a very specific context. And I'm seeing like, well, what's really going on with that context? How are they responding? Are they drawing upon a protector? Are they trying to protect a part of themselves? Is there something else going on? So this for me is very fascinating to observe this. And of course, being the kind of person that I am, I always like to look at it from a magical perspective and think to myself, how could I use this work magically? So one answer to that is simply paying attention to doing some inner alchemical work and paying attention to the parts of yourself that have protectors. Like what are the parts of yourself that have specific reactions? So if I'm getting triggered a certain way and I'm having a response to a situation, I might look at that and say, okay, who is the protector here? Let's talk with the protector. Who's the protector actually protecting within me? All right, let's talk to that part of myself that needs to be protected. Maybe it's a child that's curled up in a ball crying, or maybe it's a little kid who is trapped in a prison, and let's free him. These things can be worked with, and we can personify these aspects of ourselves instead of trying to just meld it into one singular identity. And I think it's actually more beneficial to do this kind of work when we're looking at it from a place of, okay, here's different forms of identity that are coming up, or here's my identity that's wrapped around a specific person, or here's my identity that's wrapped around protecting a part of myself. We can actually play with that and explore it in a rich and meaningful way in order to help ourselves connect to what's going on internally. And this can be something that can be really powerful and useful in terms of just doing that inner work. But of course, I don't want to limit it to just the inner for healing purposes. I mean, I think that's important, and I think at the same time we can kind of look and also recognize that maybe those parts of our identities are representative of emotions, stresses, energies, etc., that we're not connecting with as much. We're not connecting with because we're so invested in what those parts of ourselves are protecting. So a lot of times what I'll do is with a protector, I'll work with that protector and find out what it's protecting. And then I'll say, look, you can trust me to handle this now. I've got this. And I'll say, and now I'm going to give you a different role. I'm going to let you rest from this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you start learning about a specific topic, or I'm going to have you put your attentions and energies toward this specific direction in my life so that I can keep track of something that I need to keep track of there. And I know that you're really good at doing that, and that's different from what you've had to do. So it's the idea really of let's not even just work with the inner family. Let's employ the inner family. Let's work with the inner family and find a way to usefully align and guide that part of ourselves in a meaningful and powerful way to help us achieve real and deep connection within ourselves and do the healing we need to do. And at the same time, turn it around and apply it in a way where we're like, oh, okay, here's this part of me that's a protector. This part is really good at keeping an eye out for specific problems that could come my way. Let's redirect it and have it look for external problems instead of looking for internal problems. And now suddenly I've got a protector that's looking at the world around me and saying, aha, here's something for you to pay attention to. And I'm doing it in a way where I'm not activating my amygdala, okay? Because the last thing I want to do is feel more anxiety and fear and worry. I mean, we all feel that enough as it is. No, it's more along the lines of, I want you to pay attention to certain activities that are going on. Maybe you can help me identify specific people that I might want to approach or that I may not want to approach. For example, if I go out to like a club and I'm dancing around, like who do I want to connect with there? Who don't I want to connect with? Or maybe you can help me figure out the person that I want to connect with that might have a specific resource that I'm looking for. Or maybe because of your experience, you can take that experience of protection and teach me how to be more vigilant to the environment around me. I mean, there's any number of things. And we could also look at this from the perspective of, some part of ourselves that we've exiled, or some part of ourselves that like that inner child. Okay, that inner child is sad and upset about something. Okay, once we've worked through whatever that inner child is sad and upset about, what can we do to bring a sense of playfulness into our lives? How could we apply that to a sense of playfulness at our job, or with our spiritual work, or something along those lines? So these are things that I'm thinking about as I continue to read this book. And it's really a fascinating exploration in my mind, because it illustrates that really composed of multiple identities. And it's, there is this tendency to kind of be like, well, we're just this one singular identity. And there's some truth to that, and yet there's not. I mean, there are times where I can definitely feel a part of myself respond to a situation, and what I'm learning to do is integrate that part of myself back in. But part of that integration isn't to make that part of me disappear. It's to it's to meaningfully engage and interact with that part and work with it and learn from it, because it's there for a reason, and it has some valuable experiences that I can draw upon and use in order to help me show up more successfully in my life. These are the kinds of aspects that I pay attention to when I'm doing this work, because I want to connect more meaningfully with the world around me. And part of that means learning to work with the parts of myself that have been created, whether from me or from situations or things along those lines. And I can work with them in a way that says, hey, you still have value in my life. Like, you're never going to disappear. You're always going to be there. So let's work with you in a really powerful and healing way. Oh, you started to, I was going to read that message out loud and then you retracted it. Oh, well, I wanted to see what you were going to say. I didn't get a chance. Okay. Well, anyway, that's okay. I still appreciate your other comments. You said you do this now more and more, and it takes the pressure off. That's good. That's really good. It's important to take that pressure off. I mean, we don't have to live stressful lives. And I think one of the benefits that we can always take with this kind of work is we can ask ourselves, how can I apply this spiritually? How can I apply this for spiritual healing? I kind of see this as a form of soul retrieval in a way. Here's our chance to connect with a part of our soul that feels like it's broken away. And actually, it's not. It's part of who we are. It shapes our identity. It shapes the way we show up in the world. And we can connect with that part of our soul. We can let that part in and interact with it and find healing for it. And as a result, we can show up in the world in a better place. And we can also connect with that part of ourselves in a way that allows me to say, hey, you were here for a reason, and I can let you rest if you want, and I can also find another purpose, and we can continue to work together and connect. Okay, what I was saying is that I think sometimes I'm triggered by things, and then in the end I realized it was just me being triggered, and I can direct that protector to recognize how I got over it last time. Yeah, that's a great example. So, those parts of our identities have also learned specific mechanisms. And part of what we can do is also work toward creating healthier coping behaviors, or healthier behaviors that allow us to resolve situations. I mean, as an example, one of the practices that I've really taken to is learning to ground in to my feelings and emotions. Like when something comes up and I'm feeling anxious, I ground into stillness. And I allow myself to be present, and I bring that part of myself that might feel anxious, and I'm like, look, let's just be present here. Let's connect in a very powerful and meaningful way in order to transform our lives and connect and really show up in a powerful way. So these are things that I think can be really helpful. And I'll share some further thoughts about this in another video as I continue reading the book. But it was something that I've been reading, and I was reading a passage last night where it was kind of like this dialogue that the author had included, that the person had within themselves around a protector. And I thought it was really interesting how the protector helped him to find a part of himself that was feeling withdrawn and crying, and at the same time how he was able to work with the protector and change the role of the protector and still give the protector a sense of meaning and purpose. And I think that's really important with this kind of work, and an important aspect to our identity work in general. We're not trying to get rid of part of ourselves when we do healing work. We're trying to find healing and integration, but we're doing it in a way where we honor what's there and we apply it. And we merge. Yeah, we merge. And so that we become a more whole, integrated person, but we do it in a way where we're still drawing upon and relying upon what we've learned and use it in a way to help us move forward magically, practically, emotionally, relationally, all that other good stuff. All right, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon in another video.